Okay, here's another article from HBR on mental toughness. One of their must-reads. You know me, if I'm in an airport and I see something about mental toughness, I'm gonna read it, I'm gonna digest it, I'm gonna share it with you guys, right? So here we are. So this one's called Realizing What You're Made Of by G. Mangarian for 2007. So, this is discussing, when you emerge from a crisis, can you emerge stronger? I heard a wonderful speaker by the name of Amy Perdy. Look her up on YouTube or look her online. As a young woman, she lost her distal lower legs because of an infection. She was a huge athlete, and she became, she still figured out how to snowboard without her distal legs, and she actually made it into the Olympics, the Paralympics, and then got snowboarding into Paralympics. Like, amazing story. Was in Dancing with the Stars. But her spirit and her energy and her drive, she's got a great story. She has a book out, Amy Perdy, P-U-R-D-Y, check her out. Okay, but back to this article in HBR. These are the classics from HBR. So this one's called Realizing What You're Made Of. So when you emerge from a crisis, we all hope that we emerge from a crisis stronger, or that we have learned something, right? So number one, they recommend taking stock after a crisis. Number two, rediscovering neglected parts of life. Number three, focusing on what matters. So this person was paralyzed after a herniated disc, and he lost the use of his legs, and he's in a wheelchair, and he was a high-level leader, and so he had this personal experience that he wrote about in HBR. It's very impactful as well. It reminded me of Amy Perdy's story as well. So of course there's two ways you can go when you and hit that fork in a road, really severe life-changing event. So what he recommended, I think his name is Guy Manchurian, number one, is to take stock. What do I have? What do I still have? What do I still have use of? He was saying in his article he still had use of his brain. He did not have use of his legs, but he had use of his brain, and he also had this event he went through, and so he thought that he could share it with others and remind people that if you do go through an event like this, there could be light and sun on the other side. So that's number one, is take stock. Number two is rediscover neglected parts of life. So he realized he was working really hard. He wasn't with his family as much as he really wanted when he was using his legs fully. And then this happened, and he had a lot more time to kind of sit and think about things. And there were certain parts of his life that he rediscovered and he changed. And number three is focus on what matters to you, because he realized life is short. So when you go through something like that, I think it makes it very clear that life is precious and short. And working in medicine, I see that all the time. I mean, I think that is like a personal lesson that medicine has taught me from the beginning of being a student. I always, saw folks that didn't know that was going to happen to them that day, or they didn't know the accident was going to happen. They didn't know their family member was going to be sick. They didn't know they were going to get that infection, whatever it was. And it changed their lives forever. It sounds like something like what this person went through. So the facts of what they shared in this article is that resiliency is also about rebounding from these lower places, or these strange places. So how do you bounce back or bounce forward? How do you feel tough, I guess? How do you have the fortitude to keep going? How do you create new possibilities in your life? How do you choose to go forward? Do you choose to go forward, or do you just choose to freeze up, right? How do you overcome trauma? What he mentioned in his article is really important to him to have this kind, caring community. That meant just everything to him. And also seeking perspective, like how do you figure out what's really important to you? And he had to completely recreate his identity. It was amazing what he did. He had to raise the bar. Like normally it took him this much energy to do something. It took him a lot more energy to get something done. Okay, so this is a really interesting and kind of heartfelt story about his personal trials and tribulations. And same with Amy Perdy, so get her book too. Gosh, I mean, if you need some motivation, read her book or just watch her on YouTube, wherever you can find her. She's amazing. Oh my gosh. She danced on she danced on Dancing with the Stars. Like, so gorgeous. And she would talk about how she had to try different feet to dance because some of her feet, her artificial feet, would stick on the floor, and so she ended up wearing these like metal running feet that she used to dance. And her husband shipped them to her at the last minute. Oh my gosh. I mean, she's an amazing speaker if you ever have the opportunity to hear from her, but I think she has a lot online, so you would find her. Okay. So this article was realizing what you're made of, and hopefully it doesn't take something, life-changing for us to kind of dig in and what really matters to us. Number one, we want to take stock every day. Like, what is important to us today? What are some potential areas that we neglected and that we can really, it may help us focus on what really matters. So if you're a journaler, you can use these prompts, like what are neglected parts of your life that you've been feeling like, oh, I'd like to get back to this or that. For me, it's art. I've been trying to get some more art into my life in different ways. And so that's been one of my goals, and I've been doing it in all different ways. And then focus on what matters. I think, like I said, working in medicine, that helps me because, we see people all the time that have been through so much. And then resiliency is about rebounding, and hopefully, like we talked about earlier with Martin Seligman, is actually getting to new levels, even expanding after a big event. So it sounds like these folks are great examples of that, okay? So share your best takeaway. I'd love to hear it, okay? You're always welcome to email me at thebrainfresh@gmail.com, thebrainfresh@gmail.com. You got this. And what are you going to do with your team today to remind them about taking stock, rediscover neglected parts maybe of the team, and then to focus on what matters? So we can use all of this for our teams too.